I do not know if I have the founder DNA. I see tremendous founders nowadays, and could I be part of the jungle again and the uncertainty? I don't know.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Sylvan.
Edouard, a very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you, Sylvan. Also a great pleasure to be part of the show.
So before we get started, quick introduction about you. You are the head of partnerships at Wingman Ventures, a Swiss-based VC fund which invests in seed and pre-seed stages. And before we actually talk about what you're just building with Wingman Ventures, I want to go back to your personal background. You studied in Switzerland, of course, but you also did an exchange semester at the McGill University in Montreal, which is well known for being a very entrepreneurial university. So what did you actually take away from your exchange semester?
Yeah, so it's amazing that you did so much background research. I did indeed spend a full year there, so two academic terms as part of my bachelor studies, took classes both from the economic side and the financial/management side at the Des Hotels Management School. So yeah, it was a completely different vibe, even though it's in Canada and actually in a French-speaking part, which is city, which is Montreal, or bilingual, should I say. The campus atmosphere was very much like those in the US. And so I just got confronted to a completely different culture than here in Switzerland. Yeah.
Did you notice any difference in terms of entrepreneurship or the presence of entrepreneurship at university in Canada versus Switzerland?
So back then, I wasn't exposed that much to the startup scene back in my bachelor studies, to be honest with you. Actually, I got to be confronted to entrepreneurship much later on, probably after my master's degree. So what I did notice, obviously, the difference in culture with students that were completely outgoing when it came to management courses and projects, group projects, where we're a bit more introvert on the HEC Lausanne side, or at least we were back in the days, and they were completely outgoing public speakers, which we weren't. So this is the type of difference that I would see
right.
there. Yeah.
Probably the regular North American Europe difference that you would expect to a certain degree.
One of them, and if I may add something,
sure.
another difference would be also the party culture, which was pretty crazy back then. I remember that there were no lectures on Fridays at the Des Hotels Management School. Instead, on Thursday afternoon, after the last lecture of the week, they would open up the lower floors, and you would actually have music and beers over there. That was crazy to experience.
Sounds like a throwback to the good student life.
Absolutely.
And then actually you dived into the world of entrepreneurship after your civil service. You found a startup called, I hope I pronounce it correctly, INCD. I don't know how you correctly say it. But you then also went through the actual Mass Challenge program, but did not end up succeeding with the startup. So what went wrong? What did you take away from it?
Yeah, so INCD, I like to call it a project because really we did not take it that far. And I never talk about it because to me, it's still somewhat of a failure, and I should probably be completely open about it, but I don't like to talk about it. But because it's you, Sylvan, I'm going to do it today. But yeah, so basically the product was not really solving a pain point, at least not to the extent that you could monetize it. The idea was to enable creators on YouTube and different platforms to interact with their fan base and let their fan base kind of tell the creators what they wanted in a kind of Reddit type feed with upvotes and downvotes. And the creators would then kind of follow the recommendations of the fan base. Actually, I got a bit of traction. We had a few hundreds of active creators on a weekly basis and a few thousand people on the fan base because the distribution was quite easy. The creators would just share that on YouTube as they posted a video. But yeah, I mean, it was more of a side gig. But indeed, it took me to Mass Challenge, and in a way, I'm grateful because it kind of kickstarted the let's say entrepreneurial career I'm part of now. Yeah.
And I just wonder, you said before at university you weren't that exposed to entrepreneurship. So where did that motivation come from to actually, dive into entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So first of all, it was a bit accidental the way ended up working on this project / startup in CD and then joining Mass Challenge. Back in my master's degree, so I studied at St. Gallen, quantitative economics and finance. I was meant to join the banking sector, but was actually influenced by my brother, who was already back then working on a startup named Metaco, which is very much live still today, a fintech based in Lausanne. And so from then I got inspired and was taken on that path.
Got it. So basically your brother took you to the dark side, to the side of entrepreneurship.
That's pretty much it. I don't think I even told him that, but that's pretty much it.
You also did some internships at banks, right? Because that was really the path that you would expect from a HSG student. Then, was there any certain moment or anything your brother told you that then put you on the other track of being an entrepreneur?
So first of all, the steps I took in the banking directions were more by default. I didn't know what to do. Even in my master's degree, I wasn't inspired by this kind of banking path. But indeed, that's the traditional path one would pursue after such studies. I don't remember specific words from my brother, but I remember that we had afternoon, evening conversations where he would tell me about his ideas, and he would kind of entice me to help him build some stuff, which I did not take so much action back then. But he was very much proactive already back then, and kind of the DNA you would expect from an entrepreneur. And I must say that yes, there is a very clear causation for me taking that path.
Yeah, makes sense. So you made your first steps in the entrepreneurial world, but your first startup didn't work out. Many people have probably just said, that's it, I tried entrepreneurship, it's not for me. What kept you going?
Okay, so probably it's the segue between the first startup and me joining the Mass Challenge team. I remember that back then I would take small pleasures in kind of helping others achieve something. So other entrepreneurs achieve a little something, meaning when I made this key introduction from a founder to a VC that led to an investment round, or from a founder to a corporate that led to a proof of concept, those were the little sparks that kind of brought joy to me in a way. So I would say that this feeling is what kept me on the entrepreneurship kind of track that I am right now.
So probably also the feeling of having an impact, the positive impact on other people and other companies.
Yeah, you put it in the best possible terms. That's precisely that.
Fantastic. And you mentioned Mass Challenge. You joined Mass Challenge in 2016, a global zero equity startup accelerator, also based in Switzerland and basically spread all over the world. In what way has your first startup that didn't work out actually helped you to land a job at Mass Challenge or to join the team there?
Actually, Mass Challenge, like Wingman Ventures, both is just circumstances, if I can say that, and just relationships built with the people in the organizations, relationships and trust built over time. So Mass Challenge, what happened is this startup was part of the first batch of Mass Challenge. And there I got to meet the operating team there. And trust was built over the course of the summer. And as my startup was seemingly going nowhere, some informal discussions took place within the accelerator where a key person there told me, hey, we have a need in manpower. What are you up to? And it kind of happened organically like this.
Makes sense. Was there also a certain point when you decided to shut down your first startup, or a point in time where you said, hey, this is going nowhere, now I quit? Because that's usually a pretty difficult decision, but also not that easy to really realize, okay, this is going nowhere, or it's actually needing a bit more time and I focus and put some more energy behind it. How did you make that decision?
It wasn't easy at first because I was stubborn. Even though, in retrospect, as I told you a bit earlier, I think there was no viable path to actually scale this. And it's quite clear, it's quite trivial to see now. But back then, I had my head in the sand, and it wasn't a trivial decision. But, you can get the sense of the trade-off where when you start spending too much time on something that doesn't scale. So when you are 6, 12, 18 months in a project and it's not scaling, if you are a bit self-critical, you understand that there is a serious considerations to take. And in that case, it was clear that I should actually go back and kind of build myself up through something more traditional jobs, and then perhaps go back and execute on something else.
And why not going back into banking?
No, I mean, banking. So banking, to be honest with you, after my first two internships, I knew it wasn't, I knew I would never enjoy my work. So I could do that by default and have a decent wage and just get by month after month. Yeah, sure, I could have done that, but I would certainly not have been happy. And although banking could have been something where, after a failure, I could have potentially bounced back there. The Mass Challenge opportunity made sense. There was a fit with the team. And so I did not even consider anything else.
Makes sense. And Mass Challenge is, as we mentioned before, a zero equity startup accelerator. So people might wonder, how does Mass Challenge actually make money? Because you also have bills to pay and salaries to pay, right?
Yep. So Mass Challenge is a foundation. So it's a non-profit. And actually the business model or the way Mass Challenge runs on its operations on a yearly basis is quite trivial. You have actually corporates, a set of corporates, big corporates from Switzerland mainly, which are supporting the program financially with a financial contribution on a yearly basis to essentially cover our operational costs and also the prize money that we award to the startup on a yearly basis.
Got it. And, building a Mass Challenge in Switzerland, that's a big challenge by itself. So what were some of the toughest challenges that you had to overcome during your job there?
So to be very fair, we always had kind of a lead managing director who was taking a lot on his shoulders. So we had Thierry Duvanel, and then we had Matt Lashmar back to back, still there, Matt. And they were taking a lot of the heavy lifting and kind of making sure that the corporates would get enough value out of the program, because even though it's a non-profit, a foundation, in the end, there needs to be some form of value for the corporates. It can be defined in several ways, but there needs to be something. So on my side, I was more focused on the startups side, actually. So making sure that startups are connected within the right players in the Swiss ecosystem. Also on the corporate side, from time to time, on the VC side, with specific individuals and mentors, I would say.
Makes sense. And what did you actually take away from your 4 years at Mass Challenge? Because I feel like almost everybody involved in the startup ecosystem by now.
Well, Sylvain, you too, actually. So it makes the two of us. But no, I'm not there. I know many people, but not everyone. But also what I realize over time is that it's one thing to know people, but it's another to actually have deep meaningful relationships with them. And I try also now to work a bit on the latter. But clearly what I took from those 4 years, or what those 4 years enabled me to do, is indeed alongside the job and as part of the job, I was able to kind of get to know the different actors in the ecosystem on all sides, whether VCs, corporates, startups, founders. And I think it's important to always think about how, in the interest of your current job, which at the time was Mass Challenge, you can still kind of add edges and add stuff to your own self, and network is one of them. And you should constantly think about how to build it, how to make it more meaningful and more resilient.
Makes sense. And then in 2020 you actually decided to join the Wingman Ventures team. What made you switch from the accelerator to the investor side and not going back to the founder side, for example?
So in humility, I do not know if I have the founder DNA. I see tremendous founders nowadays, and could I be part of the jungle again and the uncertainty? I don't know, and so I have tremendous respect for them, because and I don't consider myself to be part of them, at least not for now. So what made me switch? Again, it's very circumstantial. It's trust built between the team, the partner team at Wingman over time, just by small actions and time spent together. Team Wingman ended up doing a few investments that were recommended by me from the French-speaking part, and at some point we had a discussion that actually I was not expecting, but they asked me, hey, why don't you do it from the inside as opposed from the outside? And it just started like this.
So again, a very natural development, basically.
Yeah.
And we know you're focusing on pre-seed and seed fundraising, or actually investments. But what's your real investment focus beyond that? Do you have anything particular that you're focusing on with Wingman Ventures?
Yeah. So first on the technicalities. So you mentioned correctly pre-seed, seed, strictly on the Swiss geography. And today in all industries except biotech and medtech. So first, these are the technicalities. Then what we look at would be very much aligned with a lot of other funds. We look at teams where you get a wow effect. And this is very rare. This happens once a month, once every 2 months, that you get this team where just a few minutes within the first call, you get this amazing feeling, and you know that they are onto something big, and it might as well fail at some point, but they are building something big and you trust them. So we are looking at teams first, and then second variable, important variable would be the market size, and if the product is the right tool to address and to cater that market. So once you have the combination of the team and the market within the technicalities that I previously mentioned, this is an investment for us.
Makes sense. And, everybody's also talking about smart money when it comes to seeking or looking for investors. So in what ways Wingman Ventures smart money?
Mm-hmm. So I can tell you a bit about how we support our portfolio startups. We do this in several ways. So first of all, we have functional team members. So we have Emily, our CFO, and Gabrielle, our legal counsel. On finance and legal, they already spend over half of their time with our portfolio startups to make sure that they are bulletproof ready for the next financing round, 18 months after they get money from us. So the startups can just book an hour with them and brainstorm about projections, financial projections, or just how to get ready for the future due diligence at seed or Series A. Mm-hmm. We are already talking about expanding the functions, those function experts to other things that are critical to pre-seed and seed startups, perhaps on the client side, perhaps on the talent side. So this would be a set of support that we provide. The other one is the partner team. So Alex, Pascal, and Lucas. Similarly, so Alex has tremendous VC experience, probably 7 years in the bank already. And I saw firsthand how strong Alex is for the next fundraisers of our portfolio startups. So we have a very broad network of European VCs at seed and Series A, and there it makes it so much easier for our portfolio startups to get the first 30, 40, 50 initial calls with those VCs and end up with a few term sheets. And then you have Pascal and Lucas, whom you also know. They bring founder experience to the table, and they are very strong in specific departments. Could be HR, internationalization, business development, marketing. And there again, our portfolio startups would simply book time with them, an hour, 2 hour slot, and have a workshop and just brainstorm about how to execute.
Yeah, I remember back in the days when we were still building Gymhopper, our very own startup, we also had a workshop with them that was incredibly valuable and also lots of fun at the same time. So really, really cool, and also a very strong team from my perspective. Now, you also raised a 76 million fund in September 2020, which was probably the highest amount raised by a Swiss seed stage fund ever so far. And I also just wonder, you mentioned a few investment focus parts and you focus on the team, but just in general, is there anything else you would like to add about how you actually, tell the wheat from the chaff, or how you select the right startups?
To be honest with you, it's okay. So we have formal processes internally. We have a formal investment process, and generally I work at the top of the funnel, where I kind of have the first touch point with the startups we want to take a serious look at. We actually rank the startups against a few criterion. I mentioned some. There is the team, the market, the product. The conditions of the round. So there is a set of things we look at, but at the end, when it comes to decision time, a consensus is generally formed, But to be honest with you, sometimes it's more art than science.
Right.
So let's say consensus was built around the table. We want to do it, and but it could be that we graded the startup pretty poorly in certain areas, but still we built the needed conviction to do it.
Got it. So when it actually comes to make an investment decision, you just described it's more art than science. Do you actually need to have the buy-in of all your team members to actually make an investment, or do you also invest without having the consensus of all the team members combined?
Yeah. So today it's very much consensus driven. Even those among the team who are not partners are actually involved in the final discussions, give their opinion, and what is funny is that when you decide to do an investment, it's not it doesn't happen in just one meeting. You circle back with the founders, you discuss some terms, you discuss a bit the valuation, and throughout those feedback loops, the whole team is involved. The whole 6 of us, we give our opinions, and indeed the consensus and decisions are driven by this.
Makes sense. Are there also any red flags that you see as an investor that then stops you from making an investment?
So founding teams, again, if we see founders with whom the chemistry is not proper, could be for many reasons, but a founder could very much be a red flag. We saw that several times in the past. I'm thinking about other blockers. We certainly have some. Yes, cap table would be one. So if we see, for instance, that a startup we are interested in have a cap table whereby most of the founding team do not own a significant percentage of the startup any longer because they've been diluted by previous rounds or poor negotiated previous rounds, then we dislike that. So we would try to actually negotiate on behalf of the founders because we think it's in the founders' interest, but also in our interest to have the founders own a very big stake as we take part in a round. Yeah. But if we think this is not achievable, we might simply pass on a deal because of that.
What's a significant share? 50+% or even more than that?
More than that. I think after our investment, we would hope that the founders and sometimes including the option pool would still have 75-80% of the equity.
Yeah, I think that's really important to have enough skin in the game, as they call it, right?
Yes, and again, very much in also the VC's interest because the tier 1 VCs in Europe, this is also a parameter they look at. So when we look at that ourselves, we know that in the next round, if this is not dealt with properly, this will cost us some of the best VCs in Europe.
This episode was brought to you by Swisspreneurs' main partner, Clara Business, the digital all-in-one solution for small businesses. Managing internal processes manually and on paper wastes an incredible amount of time. That's why Clara digitizes everything, allowing you to focus on what really matters, your core business. Go to clara.ch to find out how your business administration can be simpler, faster, and more efficient. Again, that's clara.ch. And now, on with the show.
Another issue with the cap table can be that you have too many different investors on there. Is that also an issue, or is that something that you say it's not that big of a problem as long as the founders have these 75 to 80%?
Many VCs will tell you that this is a problem. Mm-hmm. I cannot say that we like it. We probably dislike it, but we are tolerating it, at least for now. We've done 1 or 2 investments where actually there were many micro angels in there. Yep. And if the founders, for some reasons, wanted them on board because 1, they helped in the past, or 2, it makes whatever sense for the founders to have them. Maybe they are also smart money. Then we tolerate that. This is fine.
Makes sense. So now we talked about your focus and how you actually select or deselect startups to invest in. You recently also launched a new initiative called the Wingman Campus Fund. Can you talk a bit more about how that actually got realized and put into practice, and also what your focus there is, what your goal is with the Wingman Campus Fund? Yeah,
so starting last December 2020, we began to have discussions about activities on campuses. So you defined us as a pre-seed fund, and for us it is key to kind of be as close as possible to potential founders. And looking at our portfolio, we saw that most of the investments we did in practice came from those 3 hotspots where the Wingman Campus Fund will be active, which are ETH, EPFL, and HSG St. Gallen. So the intent, so essentially the discussions we had in December led us to say, hey, we need to do something. And they were very much informal, but in January, we then looked at very seriously what were the different options we could activate. And we looked at a range of different, let's say, programs that Tier 1 VCs in the US would do on key campuses, could be MIT, Harvard, Stanford, etc. Very interesting programs, by the way, but we felt that the Campus Fund was achieving many strategic objectives, one of which is to be as close as possible to the founders or future founders from the university side, but also was very much actually helping the ecosystem. And perhaps this is something you want to touch upon in a moment, but we felt like it was an amazing opportunity to train a future generation of VC investors that are students on those campuses. And also, in a way, it enabled us to have 5-10 students per campus who are motivated, intrinsically motivated to be out there and to find out about the latest stuff that is going on. So it's really very much a triple win where on the one side, we are as close to founders as possible. On the other, we get to train the next generation of VC investors. And finally, we actually get to support the university founders who get that initial check of money alongside the other existing programs, and also a network that we will open up to them, which will enable them to connect with the right mentors or get their first corporate clients.
So please tell us a bit more about how the campus fund actually works. Like, what do the founders get? At what stage? How do you select them? Please tell us more details about how you actually operate.
So yeah, sure. So we are not, I must say, and every time I present the program to any party, it could be a potential student that want to join us or a mentor, I'm always saying we are not reinventing the wheel. We are taking a program that has been battle tested in the US for close to 10 years, which is the Dorm Room Fund. We are taking it to the Swiss market, and we are making a few twists to adapt it to the local market, that is Switzerland. And so concretely, what we want to achieve is that the student teams who get to receive an investment from us and from the Campus Fund will obtain 20K Swiss franc and an access to a pool of mentors that are startup founders and operators, as well as access to corporates for the first proof of concept. So that's the package they get. It's just not just money. I think money is just half of it. And money is also complementary to other programs that are parts of the university ecosystem. But the important part is that those 5 to 10 students that we are training, those 5 to 10 students per campus whom we are training to become VC investors, they are fully responsible for this fund. So they, at the university level, so let's say that you have a team of 5 to 10 students at ETH, those are responsible for finding student teams to support, qualifying them, selecting those who are worthy of an investment, and then writing the checks. So it's a completely hands-off approach for us, except me, who will kind of be on the back end, a bit operationally, making sure that everything is smooth. Right. But those 5 to 10 students per campus are empowered to do the whole process end to end.
Damn, I wish I could go back to university. And usually I guess these students, they don't really have a company founded yet, right? So are these 20K also there to actually found your GmbH or anything of that sort, like the legal form of the company, or how do you deal with that?
Yep. So we're actually in the midst of discussing this with Gabriel, our legal counsel. This, we believe, will not be needed. Incorporation will not be needed. What will be needed is the intent to incorporate in the future. Right. So we don't expect, first of all, we would probably not want the students to incorporate a GmbH because they will anyway need an AG later on.
Yes.
So it's just that whenever they do go for the AG incorporation, they have those 20K that they can leverage among the other programs that are part of the university ecosystem. So incorporation is not needed. All we want is super cool student teams starting to work on a project. Could be ideation stage, ideally just after that, but we will play very, very early on.
Makes sense. So then how do you actually structure that? Do you give them the 20K just as soon as they found the legal company, or do you give them the money beforehand as a personal loan with a convertible note, or how do you actually do that?
Yeah, so you have to think about it as a pure VC program, whereby you will have our student teams who will essentially be on the campus kind of scouting potential projects to invest in. Similarly, you will have students who will apply on our website to get the funding. And then we will have an investment process, not the same as in Wingman Ventures, but we will have a dedicated investment process where those startups will be qualified, or those student teams will be qualified, all the way to an investment committee where our students, the so-called partners of Wingman Campus Fund, will then vote for an investment or a pass.
Got it. And in that regard, I also wonder, why was the timing right to launch something like that right now in 2021 and not earlier or later down the road?
So actually, we moved super fast because, as I mentioned earlier, the informal discussions we had date back to December and the formal ones to January. So within 2.5 months, we had enough substance, we believed, to announce the program, which we did a few weeks ago. The timeline is such that we feel like the ecosystem is becoming more and more mature, the Swiss ecosystem, and it's great for startups. They have so many players they can play with when it comes to raising money or getting other type of support. But we felt to keep innovating and to keep being part of this maturity trend and to keep being relevant in a way in the next years, we needed to take action. And this is the reason why we move fast.
Fantastic. And I just have to ask you again on that one, but the strategic rationale behind it. What is more important to you? Early access to deal flow, as you know, basically get access to the deals before the companies are even founded, or access to potential new talent to also run Wingman Ventures as a fund?
I think you touch about two points that are important. So on the one side, we feel like in an ecosystem that's becoming more and more mature, it is important to get to know founders early and be able to be known as a brand and to build a relationship with them, because it is never a given that you can actually invest in the startups you want to invest. There is with maturity, there is a competition increasing, and therefore you need to be differentiated and you need to be able to present your assets. And so this is a way to be as close as student entrepreneurs as possible, we believe. So this is definitely a strategic goal. And then within those around 20 to 30 students that we will train every year, indeed, so empirically what we see from the US programs is that a third of them make it into the VC industry, but the rest would either go in corporate for the smallest part, or most interestingly, join a scale-up or start their own company. And clearly within those 20 to 30 students that we will train every year, we believe that over time we will get ambassadors that might start something of their own and then get funded from us, or refer a deal to us 3 years down the road. We do believe that there will be positive externalities associated to this over time.
Right. I really like that. You're playing the long-term game. That's something I always admire and appreciate. Is there any specific, KPI or KPIs that you're looking at? Because at the end, you also have to justify your monetary and time investment that you put into this.
We did not pencil down any KPI at this stage. What we want to achieve, and we do not see any reason why we couldn't, is to make those investments as a whole profitable. So if you look at in the US, the Dormum Fund, it is a micro fund of a few millions. And now they are raising actually a fund in the double digits to expand across more campuses. Well, those micro funds have been profitable. And we believe that if we pick the right talent to run the whole show as part of the Wingman Campus Fund, the right students, we believe they'll make the right picks, and that there will be those few picks per year that will actually make the fund profitable as a whole.
Got it. That makes sense. Let's also talk about some obstacles and challenges. I can imagine, you mentioned the time you went through, idea phase to execution phase in a super short amount of time. At the same time, I can also imagine that there will be more challenges coming down your way because students, they usually change every 1 to 3 years. You will have to deal with different students. Is that something that you view as an obstacle or a challenge to solve?
Yeah, so turnover, I think in any program, you want to have a little bit of residual in the teams from 1 year to the other in order to keep the know-how internally. So clearly, this is one of the considerations that we had in mind, and we're actually discussing about this now. It's not so urgent, obviously, because the key decisions will have to be taken in early 2022 when we will do the first, the rollout to the second wave of students. But I think the idea would be that there is a small percentage of the students who actually do a second year in order to kind of keep this to internalize this know-how. At the same time, we do want a certain turnover because it's also a lever for us to get to train more students, which is one of the prime objectives of the program. So there is a trade-off between the two, but certainly I think it will go through keeping a certain number of students from 1 year to the other.
Makes sense. Another challenge I can imagine is getting approval or onboarding the universities, because some of them are pretty protective when it comes to, external initiatives. So how did you solve that? How did you also onboard universities that you work with, or just, get them on board, basically?
Yeah. So one thing I need to start with is that, to be very clear, we have not a formal approval from any of the 3 universities. At this stage, we have very much touch points with all of them, but we have no official green light. We believe that there are other programs, other external programs who have been implemented in the universities in the interest of the startups, in the interest of the university ecosystem, and that we are part of this, and hopefully that the universities and from the signs that we are getting, they are, but hopefully they will be completely fine with this. But to be honest, it's simply like any other thing, it's a relationship building game where you want to make sure to be connected to the right person at those universities and educate them about the program and let them visualize why the program is benefiting everyone. And generally, actually, you get them on board through that.
Makes sense. At the same time, there were also people from ETH that actually launched the initiative called S2S Ventures, also a student-run VC. What's the difference between the two initiatives?
Yeah, so here I want to trade my words very carefully because I'm not entitled to speak in their name, I believe. But my understanding of the differences are that S2S will work on equity rounds. So we will work on so-called safe rounds or convertible rounds. S2S will work on equity rounds and will work in generally bigger checks. So we will invest 20K through safes, and they will invest anywhere from 20 to 150K in equity. So this is one of the first differences. Another one is that the way they are built, they work very closely with student associations throughout Switzerland. Essentially the most important ones at the 3 universities. And a committee is assembled through those universities that then decides upon investment opportunities. Whereas we have teams that are more local to the university level. So each of our 3 teams will basically take decisions independently of the 2 others. What I want to point out is that the fact that there is S2S, that there is us, that there is VentureKick and university grants, as a whole, I think is a tremendous news for the startups because now if you're a founder team just emerging out of let's say ETH, you can activate so many levers and you can get your first 300K so easily. You can get 150K at VentureKick, another 150 at S2S, 20K with us. There are a bunch of grants. And then when you want to go for your first 500K or million, there are VCs like us ready to write the first check. So, I mean, to me, there has never been such great news that now for student teams because capital is here and it's quite easy to get the first 100Ks of funding.
Certainly a really good time to found a startup, I would say.
100%.
In that regard, you mentioned, the 20K that you invest through the campus fund and the others investing 100, 200K. Are you afraid a bit of, losing ground there, that you don't get the good deals because they will just invest more money, but probably a bit later on, I imagine?
No, not afraid. Not afraid because for different reasons. So first of all, if we need to write bigger checks, we have a pre-seed seed fund and we can do that. And secondly, the 20K to me is just part of a broader set of values that we will bring to the startups. We will bring networks of VCs, networks of corporates, networks of mentors, and the whole package I think is very much relevant. And even if a startup goes to venture kick and S2S, still I believe they will want our 20K because it's not just the money; it's the whole infrastructure behind it.
Makes sense. So now we talked about the new initiative, but we also, of course, wonder what you have planned over the next 12 months. So what do you have in store for us? What's your priority? What are your plans with the Wingman Campus Fund over the next year?
Yeah, so if you look at the next month, in April, we are opening the application call to build our local teams. So we already identified and kind of onboarded the 3 so-called managing partners at ETA, EPFL, and HSG, who will essentially be the leads or the leaders of the local investment teams. And now the intent of the application call of next month is to open up the opportunity to join them and to join a team of around anywhere from 5 to 10 students that are part of each team. So these are the priorities, the short-term priorities over the next 3 months, application call all the way to selection and onboarding of the other students. We will start operations in September, writing hopefully the first checks already at the end of September. And then, without going into too much details with the program, essentially the program is rolling out throughout the course of the fall 2021 and spring 2022 term. And so essentially until 12 months from now, the students those peculiar student teams will simply be investing.
Awesome. So there are much more news to come. I'm very much looking forward to that. And we also wonder what's next for you personally, Edouard. Any, desire to go back to the founder's route or any other things that you want to tackle yourself besides being an investor, of course?
Yep. So Wingman Ventures, the opportunity to join the team, it really happened organically as we touched upon a bit earlier. I think I'm very much part of the Wingman Ventures team for some time. So I don't think in the next 10, 15, 20 years, I think there I found a great fit and we just want to build something really, really cool together. And so the whole, the highest likelihood is that I'm part of the Wingman team for the long haul and the next decade or so, probably.
Also playing long-term games there. I like it.
Yeah.
We also always like to ask our guests about their personal gadgets and resources. So do you have any gadget or resources like websites, books, or blogs, podcasts that you can recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, so my routine is quite straightforward. I would look at the curation from AngelList. So it's angel.co/today. And there you have some kind of feed with upvotes and you can look at kind of cool articles on a daily basis. I also read the Sifted daily or bi-daily, every second day newsletter. And this kind of lets me make sure that I'm kind of aware of everything that's going on in Europe or the main stuff. Beyond that, I read a lot of stuff about Switzerland. It's not necessarily just for my personal curiosity, but it's also just part of the job. I need to know what's going on. Yeah. But those I would say are my most go-to resources. I also do a little bit of podcast or blog here and there, but those are the trivial ones. So I'm not going to tell you anything fancy. I would listen a bit to Jason Calacanis when it's about angels, a few angels that I like and stuff like that, basically.
Makes sense. And on the more philosophical level, you're also a big follower and fan of the Naval Ravikant content, right?
Yeah, I like Naval a lot. I like his philosophic and sometimes political standpoints, if I can say so. He's very much for freedom. And yeah, I just like the personage, the person and his persona. He's someone very down to earth, humble, but still can have strong opinions in certain instances. And yeah.
Is there anything in his content that is, the most appealing to you or really appealing to you that you also want to, execute yourself one day?
It's a few statements that he would either talk about or write in his blogs, but statements that can inspire you and that sometimes you feel are spot on. I don't have many in mind now, but for instance, he would tell you, hey, very simple stuff, but that is super actionable. And he tells you, hey, don't aim for a wage all your life. Try to have ownership. Try to have some upside. You need that to get freedom. So just kind of day to day, let's say that you are earning more money. Don't change your lifestyle because then your savings won't change that much. Just keep it steady. Try to keep growing your wealth, get the upside. So just basic stuff that is actionable.
But there I'm always surprised. Many people feel like I need to make more money, but it doesn't count how much money you make. Of course, to a certain degree, but it's actually way more important how much you save of that and can invest. So these are a few takeaways that we can encourage people to look closer into the Naval content.
Yeah, I know you're a big fan too. I think Naval is tremendous, and I would recommend everyone to take a look.
100%. So to finish off this episode, we have some rapid fire questions for you. I give you a choice, and you can quickly make the choice and explain in one sentence why you made that choice. Are you ready?
Yep.
So the first one, founding or investing?
Founding, and I talk on a third person, not me. Founding because I have so much respect for the founders. Investing in a way we are comfortable. We look at cases, we decide founders, they take so much risk, they live steady lifestyles and they put it all in the balance. So just for the respect that I have for them.
And without any founders, there probably wouldn't be any investors, right?
You're right.
Favorite place to live in the world?
Oh, that's a good one, and I debate about this back and forth with.
I know, that's why I put it in there.
Look, for now, I live in Lausanne, but for now, I would have to say Montreux. So I would love to actually move away from Lausanne and settle in Montreux. Long run, it could be somewhere else. But we cannot complain about Switzerland. If you look at the European landscape, you can be self-critical about yourself, and I am. There are still things about the country that I'm not happy with, like anyone and any listener. But as a whole, still very much one of the best places to live in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy to forget about that. Seed or pre-seed?
Pre-seed. I love when there is nothing and there are just 2-3 amazing founders that have the vision and show a sense of execution. And I love to bet on people. So in a way, the Wingman Campus Fund, it's also the embodiment of our love as a fund and also my love by transitivity to support founders as early as possible when they are just people, not a startup.
Basically pre-seed.
Yep.
Where do you actually go to think?
I started the habit of smoking pipes, believe it or not. And sometimes in my living room or on my balcony, I would just lighten up a pipe and just, the cool thing about it is that it's not like a cigarette, right? It's just 2 minutes. Like you have a good 30 minutes and you just have a good time, listen to music. So that would be one. But most of the time it's obviously alone and my flat. Balcony or living room.
Makes sense. And the last one, I'm really curious what you're going to say here. Montreal, Zurich, or Montreux?
Montreux.
Easy choice.
Easy. It's I grew up 5 minutes away from Montreux, the town Vevey. For those who, actually the headquarters of Nestlé is there, you might know about it. But Montreux is obviously where I got most of my childhood memories. And, I'm living in Lausanne. Every time I go back to Montreux, I have it brings back memories, and the vibe is so cool. There is a bit of it reminds me somewhat of southern France, and I could actually see myself live there in the long run. This is really the spot for me.
Awesome. Edouard, thank you so much for stopping by. It was a pleasure talking to you, and we wish you all the best and lots of success with everything you do at Wingman Ventures, but of course also with the newly launched Campus Fund.
Hey, Sylvain, thank you so much for having me. Invested time to do this recording and to release this podcast. I appreciate it. You had told me that your studio was next level. I must say you were right. You were true. You told me the truth. This is next level. This is really cool. And I appreciate, and we, the Wingman Ventures team, appreciate that you took the time to do this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now that you've finished listening to the episode, why not top it off with a quick rating on Apple Podcasts? It's one of the best things you can do to help us reach more entrepreneurs just like you.